So I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about personalized learning plans, adjusted curriculum, and those universal accommodations. Go, Zoe. So as I said before the intro, I just wanted to talk about something that came up in one of my classes around universal accommodations, adjusted curriculum, and how they relate to personalized learning plans, and just my initial thoughts, my initial reflection on those things. I know this might not seem like the most exciting topic or the most interesting topic, but if you're a parent or a guardian or a teacher, or if you're like me, someone who's looked to become a teacher, this might be something that you want to consider, something that you do want to think about, something that you might be able to provide me with some input in. Now to start off, I wanted to talk about universal accommodations. And what these are tools that are available to all students. These are considered to be rights to the students if they need them, if they need that little bit of help to help them learn, to help them get to those curriculum outcomes. Now, when that list of accommodations was handed out to all of the future teachers, I think a lot of us in that class thought and were a little bit surprised about just how extensive that list was. Now, I'm just going to read a handful of these off to you just to give you an idea of what I mean by universal accommodations. Spell checker, large print materials, classroom FM system, seating arrangements, near rather than far, point copying, photocopy notes, keywords and phrases only, word processor for notes, mind map, verbal notes on tape, point form notes, teachers copy notes provided, and the list goes on and on. Now, when I take a closer look at this list, these are just a list of things that I would probably consider to be good teaching practices. Is there anything on here that I think you shouldn't just probably try to make available to your students? No. But what I am suggesting is that you don't necessarily have to think about these things and prepare these things every time that you walk into the classroom. I think what this highlights for me is that these are tools that you should make available to the students if need be. And when I look at that list, one of the things that really stands out for me is just how important it is to get to know your students. By getting to know your students, it's going to be able to inform you on what kinds of things on this list you might want to make available to any particular student. It may be an opportunity for you to suggest something that a student hasn't tried or something you might think will work better for them. This is really where I intend on using this list. I will look back on my teaching, and if there's something that doesn't seem to quite hit home with a couple of the students, if there's something that doesn't seem to really work out, if it doesn't seem like students are receiving information in a way that I feel is allowing them to gather the information and actually help their learning, then universal accommodations is definitely the kind of thing that you can look back to see if maybe there's some tools in there that you could provide to your students. The other thing I wanted to talk about was personalized learning plans, and more specifically adjusted curriculum. And to give you an idea of what I mean when I think of adjusted curriculum within a personalized learning plan, is this is where you've actually adjusted those curriculum outcomes. You've looked at a student, you've looked at what they're able to do or what they've been able to accomplish, tried to provide them with all the tools that you have available to you, all of the different ways that you might be able to help them reach those curriculum outcomes. You've found that you just need to adjust those outcomes to meet the needs of the student. One of the interesting things that was brought up in our class was personalized learning plans and adjusted curriculum when you hit the high school level. And what seemed to get one of the bigger reactions out of the students in the class, and certainly to me, was just how this was applied once you try to get into post-secondary education. It limits your ability to get into university or college, any kind of post-secondary, because they limit the number of folks that can actually get in. That really hits home for a lot of people, and more specifically people that are looking to become a teacher, because one of the things that you're kind of constantly thinking about is equal opportunity in learning. How can we provide equal opportunity to all students? And then when we think about a system, all of the sudden equal opportunity no longer exists. Now, when I think of one of the ways that I feel that is very surprising to me when I hear that, so many universities now have really put a lot of focus on accessibility services and providing the tools for the students who need assistance with their learning in one form or another. And it just kind of didn't quite fit that narrative for me, that we would limit spaces available to students that received some assistance when they were in high school, and specifically in adjusted curriculum, that we would put those restrictions on their ability to get into university. Do I agree with it? That's something left for another video, I think, but at least on the surface, I understand the rationale. I see where they're coming from, and our system does base it on sort of a ranking system, and your grades are very important. And if you're not held to the same standard in terms of curriculum outcomes in high school, maybe there should be a different standard when you're trying to apply and get into university and or college or any post-secondary, but it just seems like an interesting thing to think about in terms of everybody being provided equal opportunity and just what that looks like once you've left that high school setting. Now, one of the things that I thought about immediately when we talked about this subject was equality versus equity. Now, if you go onto Google and you do a quick Google search on equality versus equity, you're going to get the same image come up every time. You know what? I'd have a whole lot more fun if I just drew this out myself, so just bear with me for a moment. Now, what I want to say is that before I draw out this image, if you do go onto Google and you do search equality versus equity, you're going to get a much nicer image than I'm able to draw out. I'm going to be dealing with stick people. The one on there is a little bit more artistic. This is just a little bit more fun for me to draw it out myself, and I think I can better illustrate my points if I do this. So normally what you have when you see this image is you'll see two sides. You'll see a left and you'll see a right. Across the top on both images is going to be a line. This line is a fence, and on the bottom you've got another line, and that's the ground. If we start on the left side, what we will see is there are three boxes or three crates that are all of equal size, they're all of equal height, all laid out in front of the fence. And you've got three people that are standing on those crates trying to see over them, usually looking at a ball game or a sporting event or something, but the point is for them to be able to see over the fence. The first person is very happy, they're standing on the crate, they can easily see over the fence. The second person is also happy because they're standing on the crate and they can also see over the fence. Now that third person in this first image on the left is not quite so happy because while standing on that one crate, they are no longer able to see over the fence. Now you have three equal size crates, all three people standing on those crates, and this is supposed to represent equality. Now, if we move over to the right side of the image, all of a sudden we have the same three people, but they've rearranged the crates a bit. What's important to note here is, and what I find interesting is that the number of crates, i.e. the number of tools made available, has not changed on the right-hand side. They've just moved them around so that everybody is accommodated for. That first person is now standing on the ground, but they're still happy because without a crate, they can still easily see over the fence and see whatever happens to be going on the other side of the fence. The second person in that image is also happy. Nothing has really changed for them. They still have that one crate. They can still see over the fence and they can still view whatever they're looking at. The third person on the right hand side of this image actually all of a sudden can also see because that crate that they took from the first person who didn't need it was given to them, and now with the two crates they're happy. They can see over the fence, watch whatever's going on, and having these three crates rearranged in this way is meant to represent equity. Now, how do we relate that whole thing back to what I've been talking about? Well, when I think of equality versus equity, I often think of equity creates equality in the learning. And what I mean by that is if everybody is provided the tools that they need, there's equal opportunities to the learning that's made available to all those students. In our scenario where you've had adjusted curriculum, if we were to go back to that image and go back to the first one on the left, and instead of being able to move those crates around, instead of finding them the tools that they needed to actually see over the fence, at least that third person that couldn't see over the fence, we lowered the fence. And if we think of that fence as curriculum outcomes, that's kind of exactly what you're doing. That's kind of a way to view it, is that we're actually lowering that fence in order for them to be able to see over that fence. I get it, there's many different ways to view this, and we don't have to necessarily all look at it the same way. But one of the things that I have, and one of the things that I struggle with, and I think I'm going to struggle with this for a while as a new teacher, are the what ifs. When a student is put on a personalized learning plan with adjusted curriculum, it's right there in the writing that it's important that the counselors, the school, the teacher have the conversation with the parent or guardian and the student to help them recognize what this might mean for their future and their ability to get into post-secondary education. What if the problem was we just didn't have the tools available for them to be able to see over the fence in the first place? What if the crates weren't working, boxes weren't working, or I even tried putting them on their shoulders and they still couldn't see over the fence, but nobody thought to try a ladder? So these are just some initial thoughts I had on personalized learning plans and the conversations we had in the classroom around adjusted curriculum and universal accommodations. If you have any information for me and you'd like to leave that in the comment section down below, please do so. If you'd like to private message me, I'm all for that as well. This is about starting a conversation. I am learning, I am looking to become a teacher, and I will see you in the next one.